Jai Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nivashesha Sunyavadi Pastachari Shitone Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So in 1984, this magazine came out, first published, Origins magazine, and I read it at that time and I couldn't make heads or tails out of it. I just, wasn't familiar with the language, or anyway, I just tried again maybe a few years later, it's still nothing. But about 1992, Sadaputta, who was a big part of bringing out this magazine, came out with a book, Vedic Cosmography and Astronomy, which I was really also had a difficult time understanding, but I persevered and I kind of read it and reread it and started making sense, and to the point where it made perfect sense. And then I went back and reread this magazine. Anyway, I became very fascinated with this approach to Krishna consciousness, sort of trying to, basically, a science-oriented appreciation of Krishna consciousness. Particularly, there was one article when I reread this magazine, Origins magazine, after reading Vedic Cosmography and Astronomy, that really caught my attention. It's called The Mystery of Consciousness. And there was one section in that really grabbed me, called Empirical Evidence for a Conscious Self. And it talks about how there is evidence that supports the Vedic worldview. There's evidence that supports the idea that we're something more than this material body, that we're eternal spiritual beings, such as near-death out-of-body experiences. And in particular, what caught my attention was this information about children who remember their past lives. So I figured, well, here it is. It's right in a magazine that's being produced by the Hare Krishna movement. I guess it's okay to, learn a little something about this. So I took an interest in that. I mean, he quoted a particular book in the magazine there, and when I got that book and I read it, and then I got other books over the years, and this is just a few of them. I've got like a little collection of these books where it talks about, cases of children remembering their past lives. I've got 2 of them out on loan, and a couple of them I've given away, but it's like a hobby of mine, or a maya of mine, whatever you want to call it. But the reason I think it's significant is because, the more I studied about this, and I know it's totally unnecessary. I heard the class this morning, I heard Prabhupada's point. Our process is avaroha panta. We accept knowledge that's coming down from a higher authority. We just, with the Acharya, which Krishna says, what the Acharyas say, we don't have to do any research. Research is not actually necessary. We just accept what we're getting from the higher authority and put that into practice in our life, and that's perfection. And I'm fully aware of that, and I try to do that as much as I possibly can. There's that verse, Yasyadeve Parag, Yasyadeve Tatag, Yasyadeve Parag, how's it go? Yasyadeve Bhaktir Tadevi Tatagaru Tashaite Katstakirta Prakashante Mahatmana. That, to those who have implicit faith in the words of the spiritual master and equal faith in the words of Krishna, all the imports of the Vedas are automatically revealed. So, that's the main thing I'm kind of trying to focus on. But I can't help but be fascinated by this, because it's really empiric evidence that perfectly supports the worldview that Prabhupada so boldly, courageously, and brilliantly presented to us, going back as far as 1965 when he first started his preaching, which nobody else was, what to speak of nobody else would even consider saying. I mean, like back in 1965, the only 2 categories of people that believed in, say, reincarnation was Hindus, and at least there were no Hindus in America back in the late 60s and practically even the early 70s as well, and fringe lunatics. Those are the people who believed in that. But Prabhupada came out of his corner like a boxer coming out of the corner of his boxing ring, and with full enthusiasm and confidence and courage, he presented that you are not this body, which is like an unheard of idea, really. in America, in the Western world. And it was heard of, but it was referred to as metempsychosis. Was like the philosophical term used to refer to reincarnation, like some sort of psychosis, metempsychosis. But, Prabhupada was undaunted by what other people might think of that. And anyway, the really significant thing is that the more I've read about on this subject, the more I'm 100% convinced, aside from the fact that the knowledge is coming down in disciplic succession. It's what Krishna says right there in the Bhagavad Gita at least a dozen times and hundreds of times through the Bhagavatam. There's evidence that supports it. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm like convinced, at least intellectually. I've still got to, working on putting it more into practice in my life and having that gyan become vigyan. But I'm convinced that Prabhupada was 100% correct. We are more than this material body. We are, essentially spiritual beings. And to me, that's really significant because it's kind of like, sometimes I do this little exercise with myself. It's like a process of elimination. I think, okay, well, now, aside from the fact that, it's Krishna said it and all the acharyas are saying, I've got what, at least to me, is indisputable evidence that supports that point. So it's a fact. We're more than just this body, we're spirit souls. So who else is saying that? What other worldview, is consistent with that? As far as I'm concerned, is an absolute truth. Not Christianity, not Judaism, not Islam, not mainstream modern science, not Buddhism, and monistic, monism, monistic Hinduism, perhaps to some extent. So in other words, just by a process of elimination, I keep coming to, what could be the absolute truth? If this is true, if it's true that we are something more than just this material body, we're actually eternal spiritual beings, as Prabhupada told us, right from the get-go, then what picture of reality, what worldview can accommodates that? Can be what could be the absolute truth? And I keep coming back to it's just Krishna consciousness. This is the philosophy of the picture of reality, the worldview, the conception of life, however you want to refer to it. That makes sense. That adds, that kind of like that fits the evidence. It's not only the best fit, but from what I can understand, the only fit. So for me, that's a very significant thing. I just keep coming, even when if I feel disappointed by, my lack of progress in 43 years of trying to practice bhakti yoga. Sometimes I look around, I feel disappointed by, maybe things I'm seeing in the movement or certainly things I'm seeing about myself. What I always can fall back on is this is the absolute truth. I feel every day more and more comfortable, more and more confident, just walking around thinking to myself, whatever. This is the absolute truth. I might not be able to become a pure devotee in this lifetime or who knows when, and maybe the movements, things aren't exactly happening the way I would ideally expecting they would happen or hoping they would happen, but all else fails, I feel very, good in the conviction that this is the absolute truth. Prabhupada gave us the absolute truth. Prabhupada really is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he came and he did what nobody even came close to. There's nobody who even came close to doing it. He came and presented the absolute truth. I feel like I've in the right place. Even though we're just a teeny little movement, a few people, out of 20 million people in the greater metropolitan area in Los Angeles, I feel I'm in the right place, doing the right thing with my life. And if I had it to do all over again, I wouldn't do anything different. Well, I would do something different. I'd try harder. I'd try to be more sincere and be more surrendered and like that. But I really feel that this is, we're in the right place, doing the right thing. Prabhupada has given us the absolute truth, and that's, for me, that's the most significant thing. Whether things go well socially, things go well personally, that would be wonderful, but, all else fails. I'm always able to take shelter. More and more, I'm feeling I'm taking shelter and proud to, that I've got by the mercy of Krishna, by the mercy of, Lord Chaitanya, I was brought in touch with a bona fide spiritual master, and I have somebody who I can hear the absolute truth from, and I do that. My greatest solace in life is just hearing Prabhupada speak. You know, I love to just listen to Prabhupada's lectures. I try to do it like more or less night and day, literally, because I have an iPod that I play Prabhupada's lectures. You know, it plays through the entire night as I'm trying to rest. And when I wake up hearing Prabhupada, I go to sleep hearing Prabhupada. Any spare moment, I'd like to hear Prabhupada. But why? Because, once again, I just have that conviction that I'm listening to somebody who's speaking the absolute truth. Here's a pure devotee who's speaking the absolute truth. And if nothing else, even if I could just hear him speak and you know, consistently do that, my consciousness is going to become purified. I'm going to, you know, make advancement just by doing that. And so that's, you know, a great plus in my life. So anyway, that's basically what I'd like to say. I just feel that we're all doing the right thing. Prabhupada came, he gave us the truth. And I'm, you know, convinced of that from two different directions, you know, from the direction of trying to be a devotee who's just accepting on faith the, you know, the words of the spiritual master, coming down to Prabhupada's disciplic session, and kind of coming back in from the backside too, of just researching it, which I know is not necessary, which I know is, you know, as Prabhupada said in the class this morning, we don't require to do any research, but I have done the research. I mean, I feel like I don't feel too guilty about it, because, you know, Prabhupada himself introduced the Bhaktivedanta Institute. He wanted, although it's in one sense it's not necessary from a, you know, from a bhakti point of view, but Prabhupada himself was very much interested in having the Bhaktivedanta Institute do this kind of preaching. You know, he had that book, Life Comes from Life, and he told the members of the BI, it's a very important thing to try to, you know, establish this idea that life comes from life. Life doesn't come from matter. Life's not the product of some biochemical process. Life is coming from life, you know. So that was a very big, important thing to Prabhupada. So I don't feel really particularly guilty in being interested in this kind of approach, or, you know, supplementing the main approach to Krishna consciousness, which is just surrendering and, you know, following the directions that are coming down Prabhupada. You know, this was also very important to Prabhupada. He actually at one time offered Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj the entire Bombay project with a budget of $10,000 a month, you know, because he thought this preaching work was so important. So anyway, I'm convinced. I feel that this is it. Krishna consciousness, what Prabhupada gave us, is the absolute truth. I'm happy that I, you know, feel very blessed that I was able to, by Krishna's arrangement, come in contact with it when I did back in 1973. That I'm still here, able to be, you know, trying to practice it right now. And at least my intention is to keep doing exactly this for the rest of my life. You know, I want to die a Hare Krishna, a follower of Srila Prabhupada. And that might not be much, it's, you know, in a world bigger picture, but for me it's, I mean, I'm happy, I'm proud of what I've done with my life, and I want to continue doing this to my dying breath. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much, Bhrgupati Maharaj.
Thank you for listening.
Hare Krishna. Jagat